I got so used to being the only woman in the room, I didn't even notice it anymore. Did you know that only 31% of sales leaders are women, even though 50% of the sales reps are women? I'm Amy Evans. After 25 years of sales leadership in corporate America, I help B2B tech and AI CEOs hit their number as a sales strategy advisor. I also host the Women in Sales Leadership podcast, where you'll learn what it takes to lead at the highest level, withstand the pressure to deliver the numbers, and elevate your career without losing yourself. No fluff, just the real stuff of women in sales leadership. If you aspire to become a CRO, vice president, first-time sales leader, or start your own business, you're in the right place. You are going to want to stop right now and click follow so you don't miss the episodes that drop every week. Welcome back to the Women in Sales Leadership podcast, where we dig into the real stories behind leadership growth and the high stakes of sales. I'm your host, Amy Evans, and today I'm sharing a story from my own experience as a young sales manager, where pressure and emotions collided at the end of a critical quarter. In this episode, I'll take you through a moment that tested not only my patience, but also my relationship with a top-performing team member. It's a story of balancing leadership, trust, and the importance of clear communication, even when the pressure's on. What unfolded in a tense 13-minute window ended up being one of the most powerful lessons I've ever learned as a leader. This one's for all of you navigating the highs and lows of sales leadership, so grab a seat and let's jump into today's episode of Women in Sales Leadership. I was chained to my desk and giving forecast updates to my VP of sales, not every day, not twice a day, but every hour. It was the end of the quarter, and it was really starting to get to me. Not in the thrilling energy at the end of the quarter way that I typically had, but this time it was in the holy, we might not hit our commit way. I had to even really monitor how much water I was drinking because I was afraid if I had to go on a bathroom break, I might miss something really important. And I don't even know if I'd eaten anything in the last 12 hours. I couldn't remember it. I was probably hangry and just living on adrenaline. I remember on that team, I was working with this account executive named Brian. And Brian, he was one of the best of the best. He knew his stuff. He was a total professional, and he was so much fun to work with. He had so many gifts, and one of his special gifts was being both serious and kind and mischievous all at the same time. I really loved working with Brian. He was fun. And I think I'd been a sales leader for about a year or so. And as sales leaders know, and if you know, you know, I was a baby. I was younger than Brian was, and I was always really grateful that Brian didn't hold that against me. Or if he did, he was kind enough to never let it show. That's the kind of guy he was. So Brian and I had a bond, the kind of bond that I'd always wanted to have with my teams. That bond where, you've got everybody has their backs. I've got my team's back. They've got mine. All for one for all. It was just this beautiful thing of camaraderie and support and united front of we could win against most anything that came up against us, business or otherwise. It was fun. We had this really cool thing going. We were short of our quarterly number, and not just short on my team's number. We were short on my boss's number and his boss's number. And I was starting to really sweat it. We had to have one more deal to make that quarter, to hit the number for everybody, like the whole company. And it was all really landing on one deal. Guess whose deal it was? Yeah, was Brian's deal. So Brian and I had been on the phone off and on, like all day long. And mainly, I wasn't doing anything. I was just making myself feel better. I was like, well, if I'm talking to him, I'm doing something, right? And Brian was really a good sport. He played along with the game because Brian, he'd been a sales leader before. And so he knew how it all worked. And, I'd been on the phone with Brian for quite a while. We were waiting for this deal to come in, for the DocuSign to come in. And, we were just kind of hanging out, cracking each other up, shooting the breeze, like having fun, trying to put ourselves at ease and ease our nerves, because that little lurking fear was just right there. Like, oh, what if the deal doesn't close? Well, we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about that. So Brian and I had, been on the phone for probably, I don't know, a couple hours at that point, just hanging out, laughing. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to hang up for a second and take a break because I don't think I can. I think I had to go to the bathroom, obviously. For those who know, you know. And I went to the bathroom and I took my bathroom buddy, the friend that I always took to the bathroom, my phone. And I'm sitting there doing what I'm doing, and a text comes through. And the text is not from my boss. The text is from the CEO of the company, asking for a deal update, like right now. And I did what anybody else would do. While on the toilet, I send a text to Brian. No response. I call Brian. No answer. Oh, and then I email Brian because, I don't know, somehow email's going to be better than phone calls or texting. I don't know. No response. And then I wait. And I wait. And while I was waiting, something happened. Hey, everybody. I'm pausing the show for a moment. I've got a quick favor to ask. If you've been enjoying the Women in Sales Leadership podcast, please take 2 seconds right now to hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. And if today's story is resonating with you, forward it to a friend or anybody you know who you think might find today's episode entertaining or helpful. It would mean the world to me if you could take a second, to rate and review the show on your podcast app. Your support helps us reach more listeners and continue bringing you real, inspiring stories from the world of women in sales leadership. Back to the show. While I was waiting, something happened. It's really amazing how quickly I lost all sense of reason and totally spiraled. My patience evaporated and I went from magnanimous, patient leader to a monster. And my fears just overcame me. I became angry and I was just I went dark fast. And all that happened in about 2 seconds. 13.2 minutes later, Brian calls me. And before Brian could say anything to me, I lit into him. I'm asking him, where are you? And why didn't you respond? I thought you knew how critical this deal was, and I can't believe you aren't taking this seriously. You know this deal's committed, right? You know that, right? You had an agreement that you were going to be all over this deal, right? Yeah. I was being that manager. That sales manager. The one that everybody hates. So Brian gave me the update, and guess what? Nothing had happened. And then I quickly ended the call because I lost it. I was angry. I was fuming in self-righteous rage and, still blaming Brian for not being there when I felt I needed him so that I could give my nothing had happened yet update to the CEO, right? And then Brian did something that I will never forget. 5 minutes later, I saw Brian's name pop up on my phone. He was calling me. And I was still really pissed off. This is what Brian said. Amy, hey, I want to talk to you. I want you to know that I am taking this so seriously. And I have always taken my work seriously. And I've always enjoyed working with you. And you have my commitment that I'm 100% on top of this deal and that it will close. Like I've told everybody that it's going to close. And when you were trying to call me, I had taken my dog out to go to the bathroom. And I left my phone on my desk to give myself a couple of minutes apiece. My wife works. My kids are at school, and I'm the only person at home to let the dog out. I will run through a wall for you, Amy, but please don't ever speak to me that way again. And I could hear in Brian's voice the emotion, like he was shaking. It was hard for him to tell me this, and he was fired up and upset too. And he was telling me something that I absolutely needed to hear. And the thing is, I was shaking as well. But I was shaking for a different reason. Because I was ashamed. Because I felt like an ass. Because I'd been an ass. I behaved like an absolute grade A jerk. And Brian, he just gave me the big, beautiful gift. He told me the truth. He was being the leader in the situation and giving me what I needed to hear. He could have hung up on me from that nasty call and he could have cursed me and vowed right then and there that as soon as this deal closed, he was going to start looking for another job because he wasn't going to keep working for a jerk like me. And instead, he gave me grace. Of course, I apologized to Brian for being such a jerk, and I committed to him to never do that to him again, never speak to him that way again, never be so disrespectful of him. And he very generously forgave me. I nearly lost the thing that was more important than any deal, than any quarter, than any month or any other thing that we think is important but really isn't. I nearly lost trust in a relationship that was important to me because I second-guessed a person that I believed in, and I let my fears get the best of me. Guess what? That deal closed. I hope you have a wonderful week. And remember, you are doing wonderful work. You're worthy. You're strong. And this job is fun. Have fun out there. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Women in Sales Leadership podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us and share this with a friend. I'm serious. Stop right now and take a look at the app, whatever app you're using to listen to this episode on, and hit follow and share this with a friend. Send them a text. See if they would enjoy this show as well, learning all about and meeting women in sales leadership. Hey, and if you know somebody who is crushing it in sales leadership and should be on this show, reach out to me on LinkedIn, Amy Evans, or the Women in Sales Leadership podcast. I would love to connect. See you next time.